once again. This is Lightning Returns. It's going to be a new game plus speedrun on hard mode. There you go. Hard mode is exactly as it says here. Battle difficulty is hard. Escape from battle with a penalty. No HP recovery in field. Difficulty cannot be changed. Yes. All that good stuff. So, shut up. I have a video coming explaining why I'm not covering this game for a guide, and I share some of my early feelings about the game, which I've got to say, guys, are tremendously negative, but I'm not going to let them seep into this playthrough. I'm going to try and make this playthrough as positive as I can. But that video pretty much entails a lot of issues I have with the game, a lot of the reasons why I will not be, covering it as a walkthrough. So instead, I'm going to get through the main quest and I'm going to show you how to do it. It's going to be on New Game Plus, so the difference is on the new game you'll only be on normal or easy, and I'm going to explain some strategies, explain what I'm doing, explain what you have to be aiming for to survive and not get absolutely romped, because the game doesn't do a good job of explaining a lot, and the difficulty spikes are tremendous if you don't battle, because what this game does is you need to do side quests to level up. Sorry, not battling. So the traditional stance of killing enemies and grinding levels doesn't work. On this game it's doing side quests, and unfortunately a large percentage of those side quests would literally piss you off in an MMO because they are so terribly designed, they're so mundane and just laborious, they're not even fun. But if you don't do them, not only will you not reach the final day of the game and not be able to finish it, but you will literally not be strong enough to physically finish it. So, at the very beginning, we're going to be talking to the Inquisitor. The Inquisitor has some information. I'm going to talk to this guy because I think he gets me what we need. I think this dude, once we do this quest, it's going to open up the next area. Alright. So, yeah, you'll notice I'm going to skip every piece of dialogue. I'm going to skip every cutscene because I believe it to be the best way to play this game. Excuse me. So, the game here tells you to gently push the analog and he'll follow you, but you'll notice he's an orange dot on my map, and if you run, he'll follow you super fast. You don't have to mess about with slowly walking or any of that nonsense. Then you can talk to Thornton, and he will hopefully progress the game for us. So there's the quest complete. There's our saviour reward, our bonus points, there's the souls, and all that good stuff. I'll explain the story a little bit later on. Shut up. There's the valuable information, and now if we run back to the Inquisitor, I think it'll open up this area. I could be wrong, you might need more. Yes, you do need more. So, there's a couple of things I'm going to be talking to. There's some valuable information. Whoa, what's happening? Oh, I pressed A again. So you might be thinking speedrun. Well, what I mean by speedrun is I'm going to be skipping everything and doing things as quickly as I can, because to be completely honest with you guys, the combat is pretty much the only reason to play this game. Everything else is mired down in a lot of bullshit. So I think it plays better and it's more fun when you don't listen to the conversations or any of that shit, when you don't do any of it, because it's truly not worth it in my opinion. You might be wondering what the storyline is on the game. Well, essentially, the place we were in before is Noah's Ark, and instead of getting animals before the world ends because you've been blackmailed by a jealous god, you're trying to save souls, and every side quest you do saves a soul. How the fuck do I get past this bullshit now? I can't even remember. Talk to the innkeeper. There's some more valuable information about you. Oh my goodness, it's just... This is essentially a tutorial on, talk to people, get information, enjoy yourself. Which is kind of ironic when you're constantly being timed, so talking to people and all that good stuff. Is kind of counterintuitive on this game. Don't care. You know anything good worth saying?
No one.
If you ask me for a donation, I'll slap you. No, she's a pious cleric. There you go, main quest updated. Hopefully that's all we needed to do. So, speedrun is already failed. Yeah, we've done it. I believe. Where's the dude?
Discreetly. It'll be the easiest way
What?
to find their hideout.
Where's the guy?
The Inquisitors.
There, is that it?
These gates open.
Go on, dude. You're supposed to be on the trigger point, dickhead. Oh, don't talk to him. He's got nothing worth saying. Everybody on this game has nothing worth saying, and they do it long. Everybody has like 9 million paragraphs, so that all they could have said is yes or no, and it would have been twice as interesting. Come on. There we go. So that's your first quest. You've gathered all the information. Got a couple of bits of levels from it. There's a soul to go back to the other world that the jealous god is building. And then we can continue being this kind of Noah, Angel of Death. And it's just opened up the shop district, which we're not really going to be dabbling with. Too much. Of course you're detecting monsters. But, oh, the game, guys. I think it's the second worst Final Fantasy ever made. And that's coming from somebody who... I started on Final Fantasy VII, then I played 8, then I played 9, then I played 10. I think then I played 10 too, then I went back and played 4, 5 and 6. You know, I just kind of... Here are the shops, if anybody's wondering. There's a monster, randomly. But at this moment in the game, it wants you to waste time until you can further look into the movements of the hetero fanatic people. But I came up there just to show the shops off for people that are curious where they are. And now we're going to go to the other side where the telephone is to see if there's any kind of trigger that it prompts. And then I'll rest at the inn until the time is ready. But I played them all and I got really obsessed. You know, I played 10 too, which I didn't think were too bad of a game. It got a really harsh rap for being all Charlie's Angels-y and stupid, and a sequel to one of the lesser Final Fantasies, even though I think 10 is a particularly great one. 12 was a little weak for me because I thought the story in it was trash. I thought the characters had no progression. They were literally cardboard cutouts. And I thought they turned it into an MMO too much. You know, the combat, the quests, it was all very wide, bulky, and just not so great in my opinion. But still, compared to the 13s and everything that followed, a really good game. And then they kind of ruined it with these ones. Although I did really like 13 too, because it fixed a lot of my problems with 13. And it did it in a game that had some charm to it and had some things that I really enjoyed following. So I'm just going to check the quest here, see what it says. Right, at midnight. See, I should have just waited instead of running around, but it's all good. Here's an inn over here. When you wait, you get your life back, but obviously you lose precious time. So, when we rest, there's going to be a bunch of fanatics turning up, and we're going to go from there. But I just think it's really funny that the technology gets better and the games just get worse. Especially this one, because... Did you see that just then? You see the frame rate dive? I did nothing but move. You know, move around a pretty sparsely decorated area. This is not the densest or most detailed level on any game. Yeah. Frame rate dies. Oh, here they are. So, see the orange guy who's on the map? He's the only one who really matters. The green ones don't respond to you. It's the orange guy who matters. And you need to follow him without him being aware of you. And this is one of those moments where, when I was first playing, I thought, you know, this is kind of new. We haven't really done a follow quest, the same thing you do in sandbox games almost every other fucking level, which are atrocious. But it's new for a Final Fantasy, and you know, I didn't completely hate it. I thought it's quite an interesting thing. And the same can be said for a lot of the main missions. A lot of the stuff I'm going to be showing you does have some interesting moments to it. It's just... they're far too short, and they're over really quickly, and then the game just kind of goes, you know, here, do what you want. You know, there's no left to do in the main quest, just mess around for a few hours. It's really bizarre. And a lot of things are refined, like the dialogue happening all the time on the side rather than pausing the game, I think is a good feature. I do have a place in my heart for the traditional, you know, speech bubbles and reading and no voices, but that's just me. I don't understand the sprint meter. It seems a pretty archaic thing to put in. And I do appreciate that they said that this was inspired by Dark Souls, but Dark Souls is a good game, so I don't understand that. But here we go, following this geezer. And a couple of things that are really misleading on this game. There's a time limit, as you can see on the right, next to the map. And you have 6 days. And if you let those 6 days expire, the game will end and you'll start again like you do on Dead Rising. That's probably the best example I can give you. It reminds me a lot of Majora's Mask, if anybody played that. And instead of on those... Well, not Dead Rising's kind of similar, but Majora's Mask is different. But you keep everything that you did on your character. Like your level, even though there is no real levels, the power of your character, your equipment, your items that aren't key items. You keep a lot of things, and it makes it easier to play the next time. But like that's not really how I like to play, and I think a lot of people are not going to be aware of that fact, and instead are going to fear the deadline. They're going to fear that, you know, the days passing, and they're going to try and get a lot of things done. And what that's going to lead to is people getting frustrated and people getting stuck on sections because they weren't strong enough or they didn't know enough to get where they needed to be. So at this point, it wants us to get a number, and the numbers are only available in the morning, I believe. So if we go to the quests and we go to main quest, you'll notice it says find the code. The codes are after 6 AM. So what we're going to do is we're going to run back to the inn and we're going to rest and we're going to get to the next sequence. But the time limit as well is kind of contrived in a lot of ways, because it can screw you if you run out of time. If you're avoiding battles, you're going to run out of time and you're going to be in trouble. But if you get into the habit of killing the enemies that give you quite a lot of EP, you can just constantly be using the Chromo SATA or whatever it's called to do the time stasis, and you should not really have any problems with the deadlines. So it kind of trivializes the need of time, and there are only a certain amount of quests that actually use the time mechanic, so it just seems a little bit forced and counterintuitive, because it's an RPG, and on RPGs people like to explore, people like to discover, they like to take the time, they don't want to be rushed by an arbitrary time limit. This is not Pikmin, so it seems like such a strange direction, but props to them for taking it, even though I don't think it works. This is the little LSD period. Oh, it's so trippy, dude. Like, whoa.
Welcome back, Light.
And this game loads a lot, and it's going to load even more because I'm skipping it. And if this was a walkthrough, I'd trim all this out, but you can imagine how frustrating that would be.
Come here and I'll tell you what
But
you need to know.
every day that passes, you get an item in this area. This is one here. This is Mighty Materials, which is the stupidest part of this. Well, I'm not going to say that because I think a lot of it is stupid. But what I've just picked up then, folks, is something you will never get on New Game because it doesn't exist, the mechanic of what it is. So you need to talk to him about these red areas here, if you're
Do you see
wondering.
that light?
And it is upgrading your weapons, accessories and shields, but you don't get access to it until New Game Plus, so those items only become available then.
There's a hard truth.
And it's one of the more interesting and detailed and fun aspects of the game, which they hide behind 40 hours of campaign. Like, did they learn nothing from 13? When they hid the only area of the game where you didn't hold forward and press A 30 hours deep, and then that area everybody bigged up on the internet, so when you finally got there you realised it was still not even as good as the Calmlands from Final Fantasy X. Like, it doesn't make sense to me at all. But the one thing this game does have, and it's not a good plot, because you're mocked for the entire game by a little girl that looks exactly like your sister, yet Lightning doesn't see the resemblance, and then at the end it's just like, oh, here's a boss, surprise. Great game. But the combat in this game is fantastic. If you're a traditional Final Fantasy guy, it's going to confuse you to hell, and you're probably going to hate it. But if you're up for just trying something new and learning mechanics, it's really, really interesting. And at first it looks boring. On the demo I was enjoying it, but when I watched it back, it did kind of look a bit boring. And
Right, and if
it
we
ain't
don't
boring,
fix
guys,
it
when you know what
tonight,
you're doing.
another girl will
And
be
that's when you
sacrificed.
realise that it's not about mashing. Everybody seems to think that the combat is mashy and boring, but it's not, because the game rewards you for precision timing, for combinations and combos, but none of it is explained very well. So, the two most important aspects, I think, on this game is guarding, which the game doesn't really give you too much information about. Particularly something called the heavy guard, which is probably the best guard in the game for me, because you can be really lazy with it or you can be precise. It's entirely up to you which one you want to be,
But why are they
and it's
killing innocents?
really, really
Why
useful.
don't they just come for me
And
instead?
guarding not only stops damage and keeps you alive, but if you do it perfectly, it neutralizes damage. So if you can just guard like you would in a beat 'em up or in an action
Maybe
game,
it is a trap.
you can completely get
But
rid
I
of
still have
damage
to
you
do
would have normally have
something.
taken.
Another one will be killed tonight.
It doesn't work for every
I'm
attack,
starting to think
but
we
for the
should
most,
just take these
it's
echo fanatics
incredibly
head on.
effective, and it turns every fight into pattern learning and, you know, experience rewarding skill, which I really appreciate, which you're probably aware of if you've been on this channel a little bit. There is a number here, but I always forget where it is. There it is. And
I've got to collect them by tonight.
the second most important part
If I don't,
of
another soul will be
the
lost
combat on this
forever.
game, which I'm going to try and avoid it there, thank God, is staggering. And
It's the chaos, or better yet.
staggering is
It's all the
something that was introduced in Final Fantasy XIII, where you build this invisible limit bar, and then when you break it, you get criticals, you get free criticals. Hang on a second, am I going the wrong way? No, I'm going the right way. And in this game, it's a little different on how it works. So, what you want to do is you want to, on your first fight with anything, be it a boss, be it an enemy, you want to press the right trigger to bring up the Libra to learn about it. You can visit the monster people and buy more information on the enemies, but it's best to just learn by doing. So make sure that you've got a schemata that's got all the elements. Hit it with every element, see which one it's weak against, and as soon as you learn its weakness, hit it with its weakness until you stagger it. Then when you stagger it, you want to change to your damage dealer. When you're on your damage dealing class, that's when you really get to mess some dudes up, and that's when the fun really begins. I'm going to be doing this game a little bit out of sequence as well, because you can do any area whenever you want. So, because we have to wait now until 12 o'clock at the night to do anything, we're going to go somewhere else and start a different quest. Obviously this is more difficult to do on New Game, because you're not really prepared for some of the areas, especially the one that I might be going for now, which is probably going to be Chaos Ballad.